Welcome. These will be my thoughts on The Flash, Season 1, Episode 10, Revenge of the Rogues. The episode is rated CBPG, so this video B, there will be spoilers for the episode and the Arrowverse leading up to it, but not any episode that came out after this episode first premiered. Another episode that I absolutely loved. So this was another thing that I was really looking forward to, that I had heard, both of the, both Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell in the Arrowverse, reuniting years after the last episode of the 4th season of Prison Break. This was back when we weren't sure if we were ever going to get more Prison Break. And yeah, it lived up to my expectations. It was great, just like most of Season 5 of Prison Break. I will say Dominic Purcell, I'm glad that he puts so much energy into it, because I still just don't think he comes quite up to the level of delivering a really great performance. But, at some point there had to be a less than great performance in the Arrowverse. It was bound to happen. And he is, as usual, entertaining, engaging to watch. And both, like Wentworth Miller, we already saw it with Wentworth Miller, Dominic Purcell also really throws himself into the villain. And this thing of, how he's like a pyro is, it works, I think. He's genuinely very, very creepy, talking about how if he burns Kate, it will reveal her true self, and he refused skin grafts, and this whole thing, So, I want to go over I guess there's just the one deleted scene on the DVD, and it is basically that, I wonder if this is going to be referenced later. It is something that they can just handle with a, line of dialogue, or I guess multiple. Anyway, but basically, Cisco says, he swears he will never again make weapons that can kill like these, as he's putting, the cold gun and the heat wave gun into what is apparently an incinerator. And I like that the others bet, he'll probably be back to it. I think it'll be 1 week. And this was so early in development, they didn't even finish the special effects. It just says, incinerator melts guns. But it does make a lot of sense that they would have something like that and use it on those, which does also mean that, I doubt, considering that we see them be freed there at the end, I figure they're gonna get, the duo, now trio, are gonna get new guns that are, I have no idea what she uses, because fire and ice are opposites. What's the third element there? But I guess I'll find out. Anyway, the and then they right before the incinerator started, Kate talks about how, she's been living in the past and thinking, and then living in the future, and now she needs to just exist in the now. And she's about to put her wedding ring engagement ring, obviously, fiance, from Firestorm into the incinerator, and Dr. Wells is like, I think we appreciate the gesture, maybe just put it in the drawer for now. Or chuck it into sea, that's also an option. And that does cover, but she acknowledges Ronnie Gonnie. And good scene. It touches upon a couple of things, because Cisco is dealing with guilt in this episode over harm that he and the others at Star Labs have caused, and Kate was working through, how she feels about, I don't know, should I be, that's the thing, should I be calling him Firestorm? Because apparently Firestorm is the acronym for the thing. Okay, for now it's Ronnie. And I guess that does cover the, so I'm gonna go scene by scene. I guess this is a good time to just briefly recommend a YouTube video, and since it is Women's History Month, I'm trying to recommend leftist women. And if you have not already watched Cat Black, you're wrong about what happened at the BAFTA Awards. You will definitely want to address that because it is fantastic. I wouldn't call it PG rated though. Just be aware of that. But yeah. And I did think this episode was also, I mean, I appreciate it wasn't made for Women's History Month, but it works well as me doing it for, because you have this thing of these, yeah, like Kate has some really, really great moments here, her tenacity in finding out. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about Firestorm. And Iris, I really appreciate how, like, she really does want things to work out. She does still want to be friends with Barry. It's just weird for now, And Unseen Sis at the end, who is, yeah, I'm really looking forward to finding out more about her. That's such a great, like, you know what? If they were hillbillies, they could end every single episode with, like, oh, there's another of our siblings, or, maybe they can start bringing cousins. Eventually, the entire Flash rogues gallery will just be this entire family. All of them representing different periodic elements. Okay, so that doesn't complete... Wait. No, yeah, that doesn't 100% work, does it? Whatever. And I think the very first thing is them breaking into the place with the cars. And yeah, it was surprising that Flash did not show. But I did also think that worked really well, this thing of, like, for a good chunk of this episode, he is not intending to go up against Snart again. Because, Dr. Wells points out, could have gone really badly last time. You have to be careful not to be provoked into something. And that is, again, he's 25 years old. Dr. Wells is older. He has more perspective. I'm not saying that we should not also listen to young people. There's a lot of, I'm too young myself to be calling other people young people. Anyway, there's a lot the generations can learn from each other. And I thought it worked well here because technically, like, but both of them are right. Dr. Wells is right that it is important for Flash not to be drawn into something where people could get hurt. But Barry, his first instinct was to go after Snart, and that did end up being crucial. Now, I think, I don't know if a case could be made that if he had gone up against this duo sooner, they would not have taken Kate. So, yeah. But at the same time, if he had gone after them in the first scene, that might have ended really badly. Yeah. Yeah, I quite like the look of Heatwave. Sorry, Dr. Wells. I agree with Cisco. That is a good nickname. And yeah, the I forget what those are called. Welder's goggles, more or less, for the intense fire. And yeah, they do a great job on his lines. And yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm corny. Not unlike some of the comic books this is based on, but I do love this thing of, like, so one of them's cold and he's like calculate, like he likes ice, so he's cold and calculating, and the other one likes fire, so he's hot-headed. Just amazing. And let's see, I guess that does bring us to the yeah, that was that scene. Yeah, it was really, really cool when Flash was training with the drone. It was giving the first of the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies. And the yeah, the part where, I don't know, I mean, I'm pretty sure Barry's, once again, Kate is the voice of reason, the one who really, is sufficiently careful about these things, and Cisco is perhaps not. He's very eager, and yeah, this thing of like, I'm pretty sure he didn't tell you to kill him, and aren't you going to bring it? And Dr. Wells is like, okay, bring it, and Kate is like, I miss Felicity. But the let's see, yeah, it was genuinely so cool. Like he runs ahead of grabs the rocket and throws it back at the and I did like that they're like, no, don't, no lasers, that's one step too far. And I guess that just, yeah, and it generally is clever. I am glad that I can now indeed call him Reverse Flash, which, not to pat myself on the back, but Reverse Flash was indeed what I was fairly confident I was seeing right all the way back in the first episode in that flashback, so yeah, really, really cool that I'm glad that they already, gosh, did I already say that? Yeah, I think I already said that, but I'm glad they did already go there, because he's like, I don't know that much about comic Flash, but Reverse Flash and Gorilla Grodd, these are some of the things that I know, and I really appreciate them bringing in stuff that is so universally known, I guess that does bring us to the yeah, so yeah, Barry goes to help out at the crime scene and notes, he understands how this thing melted. I like how they broke through the door. I like the thing of, okay, and what's that in normal people speak? And I think that I really appreciate the way this episode changed the dynamic with, by the end of this episode, Eddie appreciates Flash is a hero, and I don't know if that means anything for the task force. I guess maybe they'll go after Reverse Flash now. Are they going to try to be backup for Flash maybe? I don't know exactly, but I do think that does work rather well. And I think that does bring us to the, let's see, so the, yeah, Iris talking to Eddie about, T-minus 3 days, and, the thing about, she says once she moves in with him, she won't be able to go home when they have an argument, and notes, sometimes she has arguments. And it's one of those things where I've said before, we're a progressive channel. We support women's rights and women's wrongs. Not that it's inherently wrong to argue with people. If they're wrong and you're right, I feel like that makes, but also really appreciate, she knows herself. That is an important part of, like, I think one of the worst things about, like, if you're dealing with someone who does start arguments when you feel like there doesn't need to be one, it's especially obnoxious if they insist that they're not the one starting the argument. And all I'm saying is, the vast majority of the time where I've been around someone who was like that, they've been men. That's all I'm saying. Hardly any of them have been women. Now, let's see. That's one of the reasons I'm really glad I'm no longer a child or a teenager. I swear, some boys, boys and teenage boys will argue about anything and everything for absolutely no reason at all. And like after a while, you just kind of tune it out. It's just like white noise. Now, I think that might bring us to the... Yeah, I thought it worked well, the thing of, the slight awkwardness in, so yeah, Barry goes to, he sees them kissing, and it's a little, because like, he's not like trying to spy on them, and he's not trying to ruin their moment. He just needs to talk to Joe, and Eddie is Joe's partner. Like, who else to ask, So yeah, I think that's when they. Yeah, so Cisco makes this, upgrades their the shield, riot shield things, and I like that he starts with, "Can I have your attention?" and Singh is like, "Mr. Ramon, you have our attention. Now please proceed." I think maybe Captain Singh is just not the biggest fan of overexcitable young guys who don't keep to Singh's timetable. But yeah, and he proves that yeah, I really appreciate it. See, that's one of the things I love about science. When someone confronts him, "Hey, you did something, you screwed up," he doesn't deny it. He doesn't like pull a conservative politician / media personality. He's just like, "You know what? You're right. Fair enough. But we are trying to do better. And here we actually have something that really works." That's the kind of thing that's why science is making our lives so much better. I'm not saying it can solve everything, but there are so many things that, yeah. And this thing of like he proves it on the dummy, and then Singh is like, "Well, that's dummy is one thing. What about people?" He still doesn't quite trust. And also, like, Dr. Wells and Joe talking that scene, there was some pretty fun stuff there. But also important, the thing about, like, so Barry said it was a question of priorities too. I thought it didn't sound like him, and now I understand. It sounded like you. Because, of course, these two father figures for the 25-year-old who hasn't had his biological father, very much in his life for 15 years now. Yeah, like, he's obviously going to latch on to, yeah, father figures, multiple, plural, that can help him in some way. And one can understand why he, as this whiz kid, is gonna currently gravitate towards the scientist instead of the cop, even if the cop raised him. And yeah, it's a compelling tension. And I think that is when so the thing about, we have to, they're gonna steal the painting because it's fire and ice and they're comic book villains. I love it. This is, like, I gotta say, the first thing it made me think of, and I appreciate it happens in comics a bunch as well, but the first thing was Batman Forever. The opening, I think it is, where they talk about, like, well, Two-Face, Second National Bank of Gotham, 2-year anniversary for the acid face thing. I don't know. I have a soft spot for these things. It's just, yeah. This is... Do you want Calendar Man? Because this is how you get Calendar Man. I want Calendar Man. He was fun in the Suicide Squad. Not in it all that much, but he was also one that I don't know, read about. I have to admit, I did not know about Calendar Man before playing. Do I want to give away which? I'll just say he is explained in an Arkham game, and there I was like, well, that sounds like a comic book. That certainly does sound like, especially from, I think that might have been Silver Age that he debuted, and yeah, listen, I would have picked up that comic if I saw that, oh, now Batman's going to go up against someone whose thing is, specific days of the, yeah. And the, yeah, so they plan the heist, and, we have the, what's it called again? The two rich people. I really... it warmed my far left heart when Heatwave said, all I interpret from this painting, and later he calls it a figure painting. Oh. I'm glad that he's still on I look forward to seeing him next time. I look forward to seeing more of Comrade Heatwave. That's going to be fantastic. But yeah, he's like, all I can interpret from this, the only symbolism I see is that rich people are willing to pay a ton of money for something that isn't very impressive. And like, I think I want to say that's the production designer. I think maybe agrees or maybe just understood the assignment, because like, yeah, I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not. I know a bunch of people my age are like anti like traditional art. I'm not. I think some of it is great. Like, I can definitely see some beauty in the Mona Lisa, and ones that are more abstract. I can appreciate something like the Scream, for example, and not just because the Scream franchise. You know what? I am digging myself into a hole. But when it looks like that, yeah, I'm sorry. Why are you paying so much money for that? Is it literally just the name written on it? And then we meet the rich people and they're just the worst. Like, there's the thing about your son called again, and they're like, we have no son. See, we no longer have son. See, I would love to give them benefit of the doubt and be like, they're accepting of their trans daughter, but I'm pretty sure it's that he needs money and they would rather spend it on ridiculous paintings. And yeah, that was great and really cool when so all the riot shields come out, and Captain Cold is only able to slightly slow them down. And so the flamethrower, which is also just, I'm sorry, sue me, put me in jail, throw away the key. I can appreciate the coolness, not in real life, obviously, but in a piece of media like this, a handheld little flamethrower thing, like it's the kind of thing, it makes me want to go back and, well, almost makes me want to go back and play Dead Island again. Yeah, at some point I will do a review of Dead Island 1. Haven't played the others, read some reviews, not gonna play the others. Anyway, the just barely made it through the first one. Once I unlocked that kick finisher, the head crush thing, then it was like, okay, I think I can do the rest of this. Now, I think that does bring us to, but yeah, Snart did say, do not use the fire on the cops, and Mick is not, even after that, he's still, because it's like, I mean, hypothetically, I mean, you have an escape plan, right? You didn't just bank on, like, because at some point, if your one thing is ice, eventually people are gonna think of something to fight back against the ice. I'm just saying. But then we have the right. I also like, will catch cold. Yes, Cisco. I heard it as soon as the words left my mouth. And I think that does cover the I appreciated that Cisco pointed out that technically Reverse Flash did call himself Reverse Flash, and then also noting the comic book logic, which I love, of, one of them has one thing that's red and the other thing yellow, and one is good and one is evil, so, there you go. They swap the color, which, yeah, moving on. And yeah, I appreciated that Joe Crackshot actually manages to take out the, disable the flamethrower. And I think this might be around the place in the episode where Iris is moving out. Can I just say, I 100% believe that Joe would listen to Duke Ellington and be very upset, on LP specifically, and be very upset when, So, I mean, yeah, she broke the LP, and he wouldn't stop talking about it, so it's like broken record twice over. And yeah, it's like, well, okay, now you can have your stuffed animal back. And Flash uses his speed to move things away. And then again, a little bit of awkwardness. And I like that, so what's going on between you two? I told her. Did you Flash? Oh, no, sorry. Forgot how many secrets I was keeping from her. Told her how I feel. And I really appreciated that. Was, again, Kate showing tremendous emotional intelligence, as many women have. And I'm not talking about gender essentialism. I'm talking about socialization. We could encourage more emotional intelligence in young men. It's going to be an uphill battle during capitalism because capitalists don't really want us understanding things because that makes it more difficult for them to get us to buy things we don't need and work jobs that are, sometimes unnecessary, sometimes way too long hours, too low pay, wage theft, that whole thing. Anyway, yeah, she notes, as I have talked about in earlier videos, it is better for things to be out in the open like this. He cannot keep just not telling Iris how he feels. Like, it, there will be a new status quo and things are not going to be the same, but you can't keep something like that bottled up forever, And, she specifically relates it to Ronnie, which I really appreciate because, yeah, Barry was able to help her realize, although a little bit rude about it, but she did realize she needed to process Ronnie differently. And I guess that actually brings us to so yeah, we have the thing about, so Firestorm, that was the last thing said. What if it's an acronym? Which also, SCUBA is an acronym, and that's, again, I love when comic books do this. And that's a long acronym too, like Firestorm. All those letters stand for something else. And yeah, the speed reading, and then it's like, okay, so there's a name we can follow up on, And I guess that is around the time where we see the I guess it's a decent time to briefly note. So to be clear, I'm not saying it's only scientists who can try to improve themselves and do better in the future. I think that is something we can all learn from. What I'm saying is, I'm not a scientist, but I try to consistently improve myself. And basically, what I'm saying is, it is part of the philosophy of science, to always improve. And let's see, I think, does that bring us to the, there's at least one more thing that I really wanted to say. I think I will briefly go into, so yeah, Kate meets Jason, the scientist, and, like, doctors know, which is true sometimes. Sometimes doctors know. And yeah, immediately, instant regret from realizing who it is. And I like the line about, the I wasn't paranoid until they started coming after me. Will you say, too much paranoia? Too little? I don't know. It kind of sounds like the right amount to me. But yeah, and we get a little bit of backstory, and yeah, I'm looking forward to more of that. I'm just real quick gonna double check because I thought I recognized the face on the. I guess it's possible. Maybe it won't be on the. Okay, yeah, I'm just. Let's see. I gotta look at gotta expand the cast on IMDb in order to see. Because I think I reckon. Okay, it does not have a name for whoever the fact that we saw a picture does suggest to me that maybe they'll find. I guess it's possible he's no longer alive, but the co-writer of the paper, and I think that might bring us to the let's see. The other thing was the Yeah, it was really clever, this thing of like, well, maybe the solution is not more speed, but to slow down, which like is one of those things. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's like, well, yeah, I mean, because and it ends up working. I don't really have to explain any further. You watch the episode. And I also really appreciated when they confront each other. I'm not sure why Snart waited until right after Mick had fixed the thing to point the I don't know. I guess maybe he appreciated. Well, if they really are brothers, he's like, you know what? Let's make it a fair fight. I was thinking during that scene, we're gonna see these two again, because it's a comic book thing. Like, it's very Pokemon logic, But yeah, fire and ice versus each other, and then by the end of the episode, we have indeed seen it. Also, I don't think I know enough to say. Well, I guess the thing about Ghostbusters 1 being more scientifically accurate than one might think, that's probably a joke. That's like a joke on how that movie has comic book science. Do agree that it is very funny. I am toying with the idea of doing at least the 2 original movies. I am probably not going to do the show. I'm not sure I want to do the new movies. I don't love the movie, the 2 movies, so I don't really need to see this like nostalgia bait that I appreciate the 2 most recent ones are. I don't really have a problem with the idea of watching and doing a video on the all women one from 2016, but from what I hear, it is not like fantastic, and I don't want to, like, everybody already has talked about not liking that movie. I don't really want to add to the negativity around it. I have no problem with the cast. I thought, I'm sorry. I swear it's not, I mean no disrespect. I don't watch SNL, and that's what these, 4 women are primarily known for, from what I understand. I know one of them was Weird Barbie in the Barbie movie. I thought she did amazing there. She cracked me up consistently. One of the funniest characters in that movie. And one of the others played Ursula in the live action remake. I thought she did fantastic there. I genuinely do not understand. I think, I'm not saying all, but a substantial chunk of the people who hated her as Ursula in that movie, it's just because they hate her from other stuff and they couldn't see past that. I didn't really have an opinion of her going in, and I love the original Ursula. Like, I guess do I even need to say that? She's one of the best animated Disney villains, hands down, but I really felt like justice was done to the character, and that's usually, like, I am not at all an apologist for the live action Disney animated remakes. Those are usually average at best and truly dreadful at worst. There are not very many of them that are any good. Anyway, the also Halle Bailey, fantastic. Yeah, hashtag my Ariel. And I do really love the one in the original as well. But yeah, it made me want. Well, let's see. Does she act that much, or is she primarily a singer? I got to check out more of her work, certainly. But she did fantastic. She was pitch perfect. The nonverbal acting, she absolutely nailed it. It was yeah. It's one of those things where you could so easily dip into like overacting, and I didn't feel like she did. Anyway, moving on. The I guess that does. Yeah, it was really cool seeing, several different Flash things come together. So he runs up a building and they shoot. Yeah, and I guess that does cover. Yeah, I like that. One of the reasons Mick gives for, not being, well, I guess not fired. That would be his thing. Iced is, who else is gonna tolerate your boring speeches? And then he like, okay, you got me. So he torches the painting and like, consider me motivated. And yeah, Mick makes a point. Snart is now obsessed with Flash. Did I realize before this episode, if I did, I'm sure I put it in a video, but his name's Cold. In this episode, they say catch cold. The name Snart does sound like a sneeze. Like what you might say in a sneeze. And I think that... I feel like there's at least one more thing I want to make sure to say. Appreciated the part where Barry, tries to make things better with Iris. And, one of the things he says is, in the future, you and Eddie will be happy together. He is making clear he does want them to be happy together. And yeah, like this adorable charm thing of like, did I mention I can see the future? Is that so? Well, what do you see? Like she gets it. She knows he's not literally saying that's, it's a way for him to convey, like, because he's saying, I know that you two are great together. You're going to be happy together. And, at some point, you and I, it's going to be less weird. It's just, I appreciate it's going to be, because it just needs to be said out loud. And it needs to be him saying it, because he is why it's now weird. And I think, does that bring us to the... right. I also felt like this scene did a really great job of, showing, and this is something I know from personal experience, and you just also see, like, yeah, when you look at the things that, like, when you have these, polls where women are asked, what do you look for in a guy? One of the top ones tends to be, he makes me laugh. Women are not inherently against nerds. If you think that a girl does not like you because you are a nerd, like, I guess, okay, hypothetically, if you're both in middle school or high school, maybe that is it, but part of that is like the social pressure, and that's going to change tremendously once you are no longer in that situation. But if you are not in that situation, and she doesn't like you, and you think it's because you're a nerd, there's a pretty decent chance that it's not because you're a nerd, it's because you're obnoxious. And that, the good news is something you can change. I'm willing to acknowledge I used to be a handful, and, things are very different now. Now I'm at least 2 handfuls. Yeah, I think that does pretty well cover the episode. But yeah, they continue to do fantastic with these, like, recurring characters, just, yeah. And it was a great way to further develop Snart, because, like, other characters have tried to call him out, but it doesn't, they don't know him as well as Mick does. And it's also, they weren't, the episode wasn't trying to make that thing. Like the other episode, it was in part about, like, well, we got to make room for Mick, basically. He does not work well. Snart does not work well with others. And this episode we see even with Mick. But with Mick, they're able to find an agreement. This is the first time that, like, he didn't shoot all of the other ones, but it was, like, he actually, the ones that he didn't shoot, he told, oh, you should shoot me, so, yeah. I think that does... Oh, right, I like the idea of, so, Barry is going to move back in, and I like the thing about, like, well, you said you were going to make my room a gym. We both know I'm not going to make your room a gym. And I think that does... Yeah, and they're like, you can move in any time, and he just, flashes away and comes back with all the stuff. And the thing about, like, this beer does nothing for me. It does absolutely nothing for me. I gotta watch that movie. I should also read more. Okay, I think, just in case, I'm not gonna say the name of the author, even though I've liked what I read of them, because I'm worried that I'm remembering the wrong name. But yeah, I have not yet read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I did like other stuff by the same author. Anyway, I watched the trailer, and I think the last time I watched it was 15 years ago, and I still remember that line because it cracked me up. Yeah, I miss that actor too. And I guess that does pretty well I feel like there's at least one more thing I really wanted to say here. I really appreciated that by the end of the episode, Singh does respect Cisco, shakes his hand, says thank you. We know that's big for him. He is not someone who just does this for everyone. And what was the other thing? There was what was it? The other thing. I don't know. It's possible that I will remember later. I like the part where Eddie was like, "Hey, Joe, you can come by anytime. Just give us a heads up, or don't. I'm gonna be in the car." And I think that does. Yeah. Really looking forward to more. But tomorrow will be Arrow. I can hardly wait to see how they follow up the climb. So, yes. I appreciate that, we didn't see Cold. We didn't see Captain Cold right away, but we did see his handiwork. We see something start to happen to that door, and then before the car drives through it, we realize what we're looking at. Yes, it's ice.